All right, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Tuesday, December 10th, 2024 is the date, about 12:49 p.m. here, California time. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe. Let's take a look, see what we have. Shows a 1.3. Looks like a little after. Well, 1.3 is further out into Utah area, it looks like. Still seeing quite a bit of aftershock activity following yesterday's 5.8 earthquake here out in Nevada. Goodness, 167 earthquakes in total. Quite a few ones in here as well. That's the difference between the reporting of the earthquakes here for this earthquake, 5.8, compared to the 7-pointer here a couple days back here. They were not showing all the earthquake activity out here. So that's why we have something's going on here. It looks like they're doing a good job of reporting the earthquakes out here. I don't know if it's separate from the USGS, if it's the Nevada Seismic network that's doing the accurate reporting or not, but either way, it looks like they're reporting all the earthquake activity that they're supposed to here. A lot of smaller microquakes following the 5.8 earthquake here in the area of Yellowstone, Nevada. Now, there's a number of fault systems out here. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's on this fault system or maybe a couple unnamed faults out here, but it is in a location here that really hasn't seen a whole lot of movement here historically. If we pull up the historical model here, I pulled up 4.5 and above specifically for this area since the records have been kept out here. And technically, there's not a whole lot. It looks like back in 2011, a little bit further down south, there was a 4.8, 5.4 within the same region of yesterday's earthquake there back in 1959. Looks like we had two earthquakes back there in 1959 on the same day, just about an hour or so apart from each other. 5.5, 1939. The biggest one is going to be a 6.1 near Stagecoach, Nevada. That striking back in 1933 over here around this mountain range, a little bit further west here of yesterday's 5.8 earthquake in Nevada. So just an overall strain pattern building out here across the west coast. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Again, and that's a lot of aftershock activity. Let's see what we got specifically. 167 earthquakes in total here. The largest 5.8. Looks like there's been a number of decent aftershocks here as well, with the largest, the 4.2. Looks like an hour and a half following the main event. Quite a few threes in there as well, quite a few twos, and numerous ones, right? There should be at least double the amount of ones compared to the amount of twos and so on. That's what's different between this activity and the reporting of the earthquake activity compared to the Northern California activity here, where they've only really been reporting, for the most part, like 2.5 and above, and they missed a whole bunch of the earthquake activity as well. Let's see what we got for a total tally in this region. Last 7 days, including the 7-pointer there off the Northern California coastline, 362 earthquakes. That's pretty decent. What surprises me, though, is that we didn't see any 5-pointers, at least officially. I mean, there was a couple 5s that showed up here on the map that got downgraded, including supposedly a 5.8 earthquake here around the Cobb Mountain area. That got downgraded to a 4.1. Pretty crazy. And this is actually quite active as well. This is a normal area of earthquake activity. I have to point this out because there's quite a few newer viewers in here. This region sees hundreds of earthquakes in a week. This is the last 30 days alone here. Near Cobb Mountain, there is a volcano up here, Mount Konocti, the Clear Lake volcanic field, but this is not volcanic activity that's stirring up this earthquake activity. By the way, 1,143 earthquakes there in the last 30 days. Bring this down a little bit and show you guys the satellite imagery. I have to get rid of some of these quakes, otherwise we can't see what's underneath them. If we zoom in here, there's numerous hydrothermal plants out there, right? All over the place. I don't know how many there are out there right now, but I think there's about 15 of them, maybe more, in this area. And they utilize the area below, the heated area below the surface, to create energy. They actually inject raw sewage, right? Oh, kind of gross. But they inject it down into the surface, underneath the surface below, to create some type of dry steam, which in turn creates energy, and they power a number of homes out here across the Bay Area, North Bay Area. So this earthquake activity, not a volcano getting ready to blow. This is just during the process of what they do out here, it creates earthquakes. And it's been going on for a long time, many, many years since this has been in operation out here. So this is not a volcano or any elevated seismic activity out here. This is very common to see this many earthquakes there across that region of Northern California, around the Cobb Mountain area. Hydrothermal plants. Just remember that. All right, one earthquake up here into the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone earlier this morning. I'm still watching this here, folks. 2.9, let's see, it's underneath automatic status, so it has not been reviewed by a seismologist. Could get revised to a different location, maybe a different magnitude, and so on. So won't really know until that gets reviewed. As far as earthquake activity in general here today, 4.2 earlier this morning. Pretty decent earthquake there. Aftershock around that triple point boundary. Still getting some migration here across the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone and inland. Let me check out the tremor. I know we forgot to check tremor last night. I was way up in the mountains. I wasn't really expecting it to be super busy like what happened yesterday with the 5.8 and everything else going on. Is crazy. So I was limited on my network service out there. I tried, but man, it wasn't very successful. At least I got to upload a couple videos there, but the live stream was not, it was impossible to keep running up there with a slow network. Up in the mountains, surrounded by beautiful pines up there. I love it. Up around the Mount Lassen, Chester area. Regions that luckily dodged the big fires here over the last couple of years. So there's still some greenery up there. Beautiful cabins up there, goodness. So this is the tremor map here from last night, from yesterday, I should say. It's a pretty decent number, 275 epicenters of tremor. Again, situated here at the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. This has been like this for about a week now. Let's take a look here and see. Kicked up here. Let's pull up the last week of activity. 1,218 epicenters of tremor. Not earthquake activity. Not earthquake activity or volcanic activity, but this is a slow slip type of vibration being picked up by super sensitive equipment out here, and they call them tremors. And it's definitely ramping up. It's been ramping up here across the southern end of the Cascadia recently, and that's where we've seen the elevated seismic activity upstream here. The triple point boundary right about here where the hand is, where the 7-pointer struck here a few days back. And it seems as though, and this tremor activity started prior to that 7-pointer, it seems as though the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone is under quite a bit of strain, because whenever tremor stirs up down here across the southern end, we see prominent earthquake activity upstream here. In this case, where the 7-pointer struck and many other aftershocks, it's been quite active out here in general across this region. Let me show you guys the last 7 days. Going to show it, or do I go to 30 days? 30 days would probably work here. This is 2.5 and above. We can use the all magnitudes. So all the earthquake activity following the 7-pointer. This is just due west at the surface level of where the tremor activity is occurring. Down underneath this region is the tremor activity. So strain building as this plate boundary here, this plate, this little microplate here called the Gorda plate, very small microplate being shoved underneath the North American plate here. The North American plate and the Gorda plate boundary begins right here at the Cascadia subduction zone. So we got these ridges here, and that is a result of this plate, at least this portion of the plate, being subducted underneath this area, the Cascadia. And this is just the southern end, where we've seen a lot of activity in the course of the most recent events. And that's where all the tremor activity is occurring. But realistically speaking here, That Cascadia extends all the way up north here to about the Queen Charlotte Sound area, all the way down off the coast of Washington, Oregon, and ends right here at the Triple Point boundary, where we've seen that 7-pointer here recently. So a lot of strain built up out here. And if we see a partial rupture, which I think is very possible here soon, that could be an upwards of probably about an 8.4 earthquake. Now that's way larger and would ultimately produce a decent tsunami as well across this area. If the southern section here of the Cascadia decides to go, there's been intervals here. I always hold on a second here. Let me put my phone on silent. That would help. There's been recorded events, obviously, of the full rupture. That's a 9.0 or greater. The last one was back in 1700, so 324 years of built-up strain for the big one. But the full rupture occurs on intervals roughly between 250 and some say up to 500 years, depending on who you ask. So we're only at 324 years, but that, it could vary. And in between the big ones, we occasionally see just partial ruptures down here across the southern end. That's Northern California section here. And that is when you could see the 8.4. So it's very possible, more than likely, that we could see something like that take place here soon due to all the visual strain that's happening following the tremor events downstream. A lot of tremor activity here across the southern Oregon coastline and Northern California. More so down here across this area. So things are back building upstream here where the Cascadia subduction zone locked area is. And that's, it's been building up strain for quite a bit. And the noticeable quakes here at the Blanco fracture zone just increase and intensify that strain. This is a strike slip boundary up here at the Blanco fracture zone. And most of the time the activity puts strain further down on this area. Look at these ridges right here. There's the Gorda ridges are a result of a divergent zone out here, separation of the seafloor slowly, obviously over time, but this activity up here further adds pressure across the southern end. And that was a bunch of earthquakes out there earlier this month. Had some 4s out there, some 3s. Let me zoom in here a little bit more. Looks like the largest one there was a 4.6 in that cluster of activity in the strike slip boundary. But again, adding further strain. There was a couple earthquakes here. Let's see, 1.9 and a 1.7. Fairly shallow earthquakes there off the Coos Bay area, or Bandon, southwest of Coos Bay here. One earthquake on the surface level there. Not a big one, but the strain it's definitely building out here. This section right here could be ready. And tremor activity is key to watching that. Not 100% guaranteed, but the signs are all there pointing towards something bigger potentially happening out here. And when we look at the earthquake activity in Nevada, that's an overall sign of a strain pattern building out here across this region in general. Nevada, obviously, it's been quite a while since we've seen any decent movement out there, but it looks like we're just getting enough inland here from all the strain to produce some of these bigger earthquakes out here away from the plate boundary. Look at that line of activity stretching out across down in this region. So we have a lot going on out here with many possibilities. And one of them, of course, is seeing maybe a partial rupture out there. There's a lot going on with the Pacific Plate. It's been moving around a lot. We've seen all this earthquake activity up in Alaska recently. Quite a few 6s there. A little bit of activity up north here across the... which fracture zone is that? That is on the... looks like it might be on the Explorer Plate or just south of there. There's actually 3 separate plates here on this little section. A lot of people just call this the Juan de Fuca plate as a whole instead of getting all technical. But technically, if you realistically speaking here, you got the Explorer plate, the smaller of the three, and then you got the Juan de Fuca plate, the larger of the three, and then the Gorda plate down here. So 3 separate plates, all slowly and surely disappearing underneath the North American plate here. A lot of movement out across the northern ring here of the Pacific plate. And it's not, it's definitely not just a localized event. This is not just limited in Northern California. This is something major going on out here across roughly about the northern edge here of the Pacific plate and the eastern edge. Not so much up here across Canada. I do want to double check that here real quick. See what we have there for the Canada activity. Bring this map up here and see what we have. Okay, here's the their version of the Cascadia subduction zone, which ends right here, right about this boundary right here. And then you get the a different type of boundary up north between the Pacific plate to the west and the North American plate here to the east. No subduction zone up here. Kind of a transform boundary. Subduction zone begins right about this orange earthquake all the way down this blue line. They don't cover the activity here in the States, but the activity up north here in Canada. Looks like there was a handful of earthquakes just shy of the one of the looks like the northern edge of the Cascadia subduction zone. A couple smaller quakes right here. But aside from that, up north here along the transform boundary, not a whole lot going on. Some smaller quakes, but that's in general fairly common. So we still have to watch it, folks. Still got some bigger aftershocks coming into Alaska this morning with a 5.8 a couple hours ago in that same area that seen some 6s here recently. It seems like it comes in waves here. Really no noticeable adjustment here across the Japan area and the Kuril-Kamchatka. Typical movement out here, it looks like, for now. But I still think we're underneath the potential target zone here unless we see some major earthquake activity out here in this area of the world. It seems to always enhance out here across this section just prior to any major activity out west here across the way across the Pacific plate. I'm talking about Japan, the Kuril-Kamchatka, maybe even around Taiwan. But right now, we're still lighting up out here across the west coast. So stay on guard, be on guard. Yesterday, I don't know if you guys seen my video here, it ended up turning into a short. I don't know why, but I had like a minute-long video I recorded up here at the cabin just outside of Mount Lassen and the Chester area. Beautiful area up there, by the way. And earthquake alert came in, the early alert telling us to expect some shaking. I waited. I keyed up my cell phone real quick just so I can record it just in case it was a really nice jolt. It said a 5.8 earthquake somewhere in Nevada. So it was about 20 seconds. Felt a little bit of rolling motion there from that earthquake up here around the Chester area. But that was from the 5.8 down here. Pretty significant distance. And 20 seconds. Chandelier there in the cabin was starting to sway back a little bit. I recorded that and uploaded it up there on this channel as a short. So check that out if you didn't get a chance to check it out yet. But just an overall pattern change, or I can't say a change out here. I guess we could say a change, right? Compared to quiet times here recently, things are starting to really come on the uptick here across the west coast. We had a lot of activity here across Southern California recently, a lot of 4s. In fact, more 4s down across Southern California area this year than at any time since the about the mid-'80s, 1980s. And that straight from Dr. Lucy Jones there. I think everyone knows who she is. Seismologist there. I still can't get a hold of her. She just won't. I guess she doesn't want to talk to me. I have some questions there, and I even set up a couple appointments on her Facebook Messenger page, but never heard back. Anyway, so we are on, looks like we're on a change out here from being fairly quiet to an elevated seismic event unfolding out here. And that's the time here when we need to be on guard for maybe some larger scale activity. And that could happen at anywhere. We got numerous fault systems there across the Bay Area that are well overdue. The Hayward Fault for one of them that runs through the East Bay. You know, it could happen anywhere out here during this major seismic elevated event that's taking place. So we just got to be on guard. Make sure you download that early alert system there. It's called MyShake. And supposedly it's only available for California, Oregon, and Washington. So if you're out here, obviously you might want to have that on your phone. For Southern California here, we are looking at, there's one earthquake there from yesterday, that 3-pointer. Today, little spotty out here. Most of the movement looks like it's around the Bakersfield area in kind of a linear fashion out here. Nothing big, all small microquake activity. Seen they got some big fire here just north of Malibu in the mountain ranges out here. I was just out there a couple months back. Beautiful area, but man, it was so dry. I was like, if these guys get a Santa Ana wind event out there and a fire breaks out, it's going to be a big one. So unfortunately, that's what looks like happened here over the last couple days. We'll check that out maybe here at the end of this video. Nothing more to report here across the Sheldon area. They had a little swarming activity here yesterday. Some 2s and 1s. It looks like that has calmed down for now. Pacific Northwest, relatively quiet aside from a few small earthquakes there across the Cascades. Yellowstone National Park, nothing showing up there, but I do want to double check, see what we have. I'm sure that 5.8 showed up nicely, in which it did. Look at that. That is not a local seismic activity event. That is from yesterday during the 5.8 in Nevada. It showed up quite nicely there at Yellowstone National Park. Looks like there was another. This is going to be the 5.8 from Alaska. Just all sorts of activity here today. Actually, it's been this way for the past couple months. After, I'd say, prior to the 7-pointer there in Northern California, we had 3 weeks, probably about 3 to 4 weeks of somewhat quiet conditions. So that 5.8 struck at 10:04 this morning. And if you look here, 10:04, once that seismic wave travels over 1,000, I can't remember the exact mileage there, from Yellowstone to the Aleutian Trench, probably a couple thousand miles there, that would match that time frame for that 5.8 along the Aleutian Trench to show up here. So that's not a local event. Local seismic activity event would look like, and there's a couple spikes here. See these little well-defined local spikes? A handful of them. I don't know if they're reporting these earthquakes over there or not. Let me see here. Nope. These earthquakes here from yesterday around the Hebgen Lake Estates area. But nothing showing up there from the USGS with regards to some of the very small microquake activity showing up. Doesn't look like anything big. There's a little bit of seismic small microquakes around the Maple Creek area. Looks like another one here around Upper Hills or Upper Falls. Aside from that, the Yellowstone supervolcano is actually very quiet. Nothing major going on there. Out and about here, further out, oil fields in Texas look a little bit quieter today. Some movement, but really nothing big. The New Madrid seismic zone, nothing showing up here right now. Over the last week or so, majority of this, I believe, is from, well, there's some from the 9th, the 8th, the 6th. They've had a little bit of an uptick out here across the New Madrid zone. And, of course, that's an area that is capable of producing some big-time earthquakes. It's been showing a little bit of heightened activity here recently, so we do have to watch that as well. If you think about it, those series of large events back in 1811, 1812, that was over 200 years ago. So obviously we do have some strain that may be ready to be released. That would be not good. 7.5 out here in this area would do tremendous damage. But it's been showing some elevated activity, so that's what we got to watch out for. The rest of the globe here, let's take a look. Again, it's pretty quiet out here across the CurlCam chat. I'm still a little suspicious of that. I think something's about ready to pop here. Until then, we do need to watch this area. Aleutian Trench here down through Canada, Northern California inland. Southern California been dodging all the excitement right now, at least in the past couple days, but that may not stay that way for long. Typical movement here across the crunch zone. That is going to be Taiwan southward here into the Philippines, Indonesia Islands area. Pretty quiet back here across the New Zealand area, aside from a couple threes. Hawaii out in the middle of it all. What's going on out there in Hawaii? Something's got to be going on, right? Not a whole lot. Just some very small earthquake activity here, and really not all that much. One earthquake way off the western coast here of the Big Island, 27 miles southwest of Captain Cook, Hawaii. A little 3.7. So nothing changing out there. A lot of times we'll see things really start to ramp up out there across Hawaii when the Pacific Plate here is doing its thing, moving around. But for now, it's actually pretty quiet. Some earthquake activity way south here of the Madagascar area. Let's see what we got down there. It's out on the southwest Indian Ridge, a little 5.3, and that's going to be kind of like a zipper zone, but that's going to be a fracture boundary out there, creating some new crust slowly but surely over time. Some new oceanic crust. Got some earthquake activity here from this morning. Looks like stirring up in the Peru-Chile Trench with a bunch of fours. Let's see. That's fairly active down there, but that's almost always happening. All right, what do we got? 3.9 Java Trench right now, and a little 3.2 out here. So we'll continue to watch that. Let's give a quick glance here at space weather activity, where looks like we're starting to sizzle a little bit with some upper sea flare activity. Look at this, getting really spiky here. That tells me right there that we've got a sunspot facing the Earth that's quite unstable. An M flare looks like last night, decent M flare. There's our X flare from a couple days ago. Another M flare earlier this morning. Let's see what we got here. Looks like this area up here is fairly active. Notice that those magnetic lines. A little bright feature right there, indicating some flaring. Also around the western limb. Of course, that's going to be out of sight. Actually, it is out of sight, out of mind. But it is kind of peeking up there above the horizon, giving us that little flare. But, man, it's hard to tell exactly which sunspots are the ones to watch out for, because we're missing our magnetogram image. Hopefully that comes back. Looking at this image here, shows some prominences out there potentially that could blast off, depending on if activity continues to stir up around the region. Overall threat right now shows a 10% chance for X flare, M flare at 55, C flare around 99% chance or so. Nothing major in the Aurora forecast there for now. Storm Prediction Center in terms of severe weather. Looks like they added a little slight risk here across areas of the south. Looks like tornado activity there, 2 and 5% chance there. 5% is going to be the more favorable area for the tornado development today. A little bit of wind in there and no hail threats. A quick glance at the numerical models here shows that line of wet weather out there continuing to evolve and develop. Eventually that's going to be scooting off there to the northeast and off the eastern coast. California finally got some rain coming in. It looks like Wednesday night, Thursday, and then looks like another storm behind that. Thank you so much. We needed this, and maybe even another storm behind that. So we got a series of systems coming in, and that is just fine by me, because man, we need it. We definitely need it here. It's our rainy season. We're supposed to have wet weather, right? All right, so here's a look here at the latest fire activity down Southern California. Notice nothing up here in Northern California. We've got some prescribed burns. Hopefully none of those get out of hand. This here is called the Franklin Fire, just outside the Malibu area. Looks like it's a big fire. We got 2,712 acres burned so far. No containment, at least according to the Watch Duty app here. That's, unfortunately, I'm sure there's some homes back there. I was just down here a couple months back there investigating some earthquake activity there around the Malibu Coast Fault. There's Malibu. This is just right there, too. That's scary. Malibu Beach. It was down here. Ate at a pretty nice restaurant there off the 1 highway. Highway 1, the Pacific Coast Highway there. Had some, I can't remember what I had, but it was pretty good food. Unfortunately, it looks like that area is underneath some big-time threats here from this fire called the Franklin Fire. Hopefully they get it under control. See what this image, man. This is put out today, earlier this morning, it looks like. Of course, they just got through dealing with some super strong winds down there, and that's all it takes is a little match, and you get some big, huge fire going like that. That's definitely not good, so hopefully they get that under control there. All right, folks, live stream is up and running. I will continue to keep an eye on things. We got all the live stream seismograph stations up. Petrolia there in Northern California showing a little spike, nothing big. I need to find the Nevada station here. I'll have to add one onto the list here of live seismographs. But for now, good to be back home. Live stream is up and running. We'll keep an eye on things. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later as well. I got to unpack and, relax a little bit. Have a good one.